I got a question for anyone who reads Kengan Omega and who's watching this video, and my question is whether or not you still consider Raian a traditional, let's say, when I say traditional, I mean what we used to refer to as the S tier. Because in my opinion, I would say Raian is probably beyond that, at least in terms of when S tier was actually made, right? When Kuroki was still running the block and his rival was Kuroki, right? And towards the beginning of Omega, Togita, Oma, and Lolong Donaire, they were sort of on that tier, as well as Jirada. I don't think Raian currently fits in that category. I think he's more along the side of the worm heads, which in my opinion are basically the next best thing to Shen Wulong himself, who of course exists in his own little sphere. But the reason I asked that question is because Koga seems like he's going to be at the summit soon based on how he performed against Raian in this chapter and what he actually says at the end of their fight, which is pretty big. Because I've had the controversial opinion that this man is S tier. But let's actually look at the chapter itself. Enough rambling. The chapter starts off with Koga going in, clutching his fist one more time. And I am making a meme by saying that because it looks like the panel where Togita Oma was trying to punch Kuroki one last time. I think he was using Demon's Bane at that point. But it's a similar looking panel. Koga is going in with a right hand strike or a straight right punch. And we just hear a bam. Now, surprise, surprise, that didn't really hit Raian, but he blocked it by raising his knee and deflecting Koga's arm from essentially reaching its destination. And we hear Raian start getting charged up. You know, he's going, hey! And he used the leg that he had raised to deflect Koga's right arm to kick him, you know, twice on his shoulder and then his leg. So, seems like we're starting off right where we left off in the last chapter, and already Koga ain't looking so good, right? Raian manages to counter him cleanly and do pretty substantial damage, at least towards his knee or the side of his leg. But Koga was sort of guarding as he was doing this, and so Raian, after that attack, goes in for another attack, this time a straight right punch, the classic. But Koga manages to actually deflect his straight right punch with his left arm, so he's sort of shifting the attack aside, and Ryan's like, come on bro, let's see a bit more than that. Like, you're already on the defensive here. This just started, further hinting towards like this is the beginning of the actual fight, ever since of course Koga tried to go in for the advantage by cheap shotting Raian. But Raian, as he's saying this, he sort of does a kick towards Koga's face. And Koga, you know, he sort of ducks towards his left side, away from the kick that is coming towards his right. And while this is happening, you know, we sort of focus on Ryuki here. And Ryuki is like, yeah, he's kicked it up a notch. He's sharper with Koga than he was with him. And well, he's not in a not so good state right now. Not to mention the fact that Raian has been trying to provoking Koga as the fight is going on. But Ryuki is like, hey, Koga is maintaining his cool and he's waiting for his chance to actually strike. You know, Koga has sort of grown a lot more, and he sort of does understand that he's not at the point where he can go blow for blow with Raian or toe to toe with him right now. He needs to wait for those types of opportunities. Raian is basically like a Dark Souls boss. So as he's ducking and weaving, Raian throws another straight right punch. He throws another one, straight right punch again. This time, Koga sort of disappears. And this sort of catches Raian by surprise because Koga starts using the Nico style flash fire. So he's surrounding him, the rhythm echo technique basically. But Oma has done that many times before. Most people are familiar with this technique. And so is Raian. He's fought Oma many times before. And even in the tournament, he's probably seen this before. He even says like, well, nice fish tribe. And so while Koga tries to go in, so we see him try to close the gap, trying to take advantage of the flash fire effects to confuse his enemy, and we see him going or coming from the left side of Raian, but a little bit behind him as well, so he's trying to flank him, obviously. At least that's what it looks like, but Raian has already caught on. Like, by the time he's closing in, Raian's like, I got your number, and I'm about to dial in with my fist. But as he punches with his left fist, trying to counter him or catch him, he disappears again. And we then get to hear some inner thoughts of Raian. And he's like, oh, so that's how you chose to counter it. And then we see the Gaio style being used. And of course, it's air rendering, the most broken, useful technique in the entirety of the Gaio style. I'm telling you right now, this is probably the best technique. Air rendering has been spammed and has been more or less successful. I think it tends to do a lot better for itself than other moves of the Gaio style. But when Raian sort of picks up that Koga sort of is combining different types of techniques, because he seemed to have suspected that, yeah, Koga would know that I've seen this before, so he's going to mix it up. So he kind of saw that coming. It's just this combo that had caught him off guard, and as he's in the air, it seems like he kicks Raian, but that's not what happens, because we see the sound effect, which is whoosh. So somehow, someway, Kurei Raian, even though the attack looks like it's on his head, no, he managed to shift that head, he managed to do something, and he avoided that attack completely. And as Koga lands on the ground, right, like that was probably his biggest opportunity in this entire chapter. I think that's the best he does. He starts, screaming, trying to hype himself up, and Raian just smacks him with his fist, straight to his face. And Koga actually managed to block that attack. And at this point, Raian's like, okay, I'm impressed, little kid. Let's kick it up a notch again. So Koga has done so good that Raian's like, okay, I'm in phase 3, I guess. But we don't see phase 3, unfortunately. But what was very interesting is that it seems like there's a long passage of time, which further feeds onto my agenda. That Koga being able to hang with Raian for that long, means that Koga is quite powerful. But after that, we see the fight is over. Raian's basically tying his shoelaces. There's blood on his face. And he says, hey, he'll give Koga some credit. He wasn't bad, but he's still not good enough. So Raian's like, hey, you got some training to do, bruh. Back to the gym. It is for you. And we see Koga lying on the ground, and Ryuki comes up and he just straight up asks, like, is he actually still alive? Because Raian has probably beaten the hell out of Koga. And Koga, he confirms that he's mostly dead, but then follows up, from that joke. He follows up with saying, hey, in just half a year, in 6 months, this man will be at Kurei Raian's level, if not higher. Now that's big words. That's Koga being like, you know what? I'm seeing the horizon, I see it in 6 months. Which I need to refer to how many months we actually have for the training, or how long until that time. Because that could mean very big things if the training arc ends around that time. But that's the end of the scene, and we go over to what might be the hypest moment in the entire chapter. And that is we go to the Kakigahara forest. And when I was there, I was like, oh. And into the scene is Old Man Metsudo. So Old Man Metsudo, he's gone to the Kakigahara forest, and it's obvious that he's looking for Wakatsuki. And it seems like he found him, because he's like, hey, good to see that you're still kicking. And we see, Wakatsuki, he's sort of meditating, or at least sitting down cross-legged, not really meditating, right? He's probably taking a rest. And we see these giant trees. They look like they've been cut down. It looks like he's trying to make the Kakigahara forest not a forest anymore. He's trying to take out all the trees. Like maybe Wakatsuki has finally gotten insane and he thinks all the Nico style users are in the trees. But Metsudo then asks, hey, how is his training going? And it seems like it's going pretty well. But Wakatsuki doesn't confirm as much. He's like, hey, how can I help you? So no confirmation as to how the training is actually going for him. But Metsudo then replies to his question. He's like, nah, he's really not there for much of anything. He just came to pop by. That's a lie. More than likely, Metsudo is there to assess just how powerful Wakatsuki is. Wakatsuki, if you think about it, right, even if the whole Shen Wulong plot wasn't happening, although primarily because of the Shen Wulong plot, he needs to check on Wakatsuki, who is potentially their number one asset, one of their biggest heavy hitters in the entirety of, the Kengan underground martial art fighters. But once you add on to the fact that they're kind of preparing for a battle against the worm, that makes things a lot more interesting, because now we can kind of see Metsudo's presence being here. He wants to check, hey, can I get this guy if he's really that powerful now? Can I just send him to fight Wulong, if he's that good now? But in order to assess that, and of course this is my theory on what I think Metsudo is doing here, Metsudo has someone who's tagging along. And at first I thought it was Agito. I was like, they're gonna really do a rematch with Agito here? No, it's Amori. Still a fan of Metsudo, the fourth fan. But they nearly got me with that one. Metsudo's like, hey, I got you as a worthy opponent here. And Wakatsuki's like, thanks, I've been waiting to punch someone's face in. I haven't been finding the Nico style uses in the trees. And that's the end of the chapter. Again, pretty good all things considered. I would say it had a lot of high points, especially with the Wakatsuki portion, but the little small battle that Raian had with Koga I think is very important and does set some expectations for just how powerful Koga might be and how close we are to the finish line, because we would be thinking that Raian is closer to the finish line in terms of power than most other characters. And so Koga saying he's 6 months away from that is big news. But yeah, don't forget to like and sub, and until next time, take it easy.